Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we get into this video, please check out Dixieland RC, RC Addict, and Darkside 3D Printing. All three of those businesses are terrific businesses to work with and deal with. The big thing is, folks, they support this hobby. They support events, they support donating things to different causes. They are all three excellent places. Please check them out. Also, all three of them, none of the ones, the places, the businesses I just talked about have anything to do with what I say. These reviews, these videos are my opinion and my opinion alone. So, all right, folks, we're going to jump into this. This is the Element RC kit review. However, there's going to be two parts to this. Part one is going to be this kit or the RTRs that you see available from Element. All three platforms, the Sendero, the Enduro, and the kit, is going to be included in part one. Okay, it's going to be an RTR or beginner's vision, you know, maybe a kid gets it, something of that nature. Because quite frankly, there's so many different perspectives. There's different people that have different needs. And if I go and just do one review, and it's just a blanket review and it covers everything, then somebody's getting cheated from that review, okay? My perspective for their use may be completely different. And I want to make sure we get a couple different perspectives and different thoughts on it. Also, with that being said, part two is going to be slightly more serious. However, if you're somebody just getting into this, or you've already had a couple other trucks, you're still a beginner, but you may want to go farther with it, then by all means watch part two. Take part two with a grain of salt. Both part one and part two take with a grain of salt. This is just my perspectives for what I see and what I dealt with. All right. Before we even get into this truck, and a big think before you do, if you have any problem at all with your Element, I can tell you for certain they have extremely good customer service. If you have a problem with it out of the box, if you have a problem with it shortly out of the box, if you're missing something, please email or call them and they will immediately get you fixed up. There's no need to blast them on social media, that kind of thing. Okay, just FYI, that's where it is. They have awesome customer service. Okay, first we're going to go over the electronics that are currently in this truck, just so you know what they are and what they're for. A couple of the electronics that are in here are just temporary. For instance, this is Hobbywing 1080 ESC I just threw in there. It is nothing more than my winch controller. Okay, and it's just literally temporary in there. This 8-channel receiver is just temporarily in there. I'm putting a 6-channel in it. I just had that laying at the time. It was already waterproofed. I threw it in. The rest of this is not temporary anymore, per se. 10 amp Castle BEC. We'll move up here. This is a Reese 555 steering servo. This is a Precision RC Works winch. Okay. And you can see it hiding in there. Okay. Awesome winches. They come with a lifetime warranty. You cannot get better than Precision Works RC for a winch. Okay. Now, the other electronics that are in here, this is a 3000 mAh 3S Helios RC battery pack. We have a Castle Mamba Micro X, and that is paired up with a Holmes Hobbies 2200 kV Puller Pro stubby. Okay, that is the setup for this truck. Now, we're going to talk about the first thing. We're going to talk about a couple of the points that you keep seeing or hearing if you've watched other reviews or you see on social media or whatnot. We're going to nip them in the butt right off the bat. All right, first thing we're going to do, if you take the truck and you grab it from the front and the back of the chassis, just like I said on my initial thoughts video, the truck is not designed to do that. It's not designed to be tried to manually make look like a Twizzler by the hands of a human, okay? Taking the front and rear and twisting opposite directions is a terrible idea. Don't do it. What we look at whenever we're looking at chassis flex is it rigid enough to carry its own weight with all the weight compressed into one given place? So for instance, all the weight on one tire, here, there, wherever, okay? The answer to this is this truck is fine the way it is. There's no reason to be too concerned about it. We did tons of testing. I had this truck for like 8 months now, and I went back and forth with how I wanted to do this review. But we never once noticed where the chassis flexed enough to give negative performance, nor did we ever actually physically see the truck flexing the chassis. All right. If it did, it was so minuscule we didn't see it, and that's what it is. Next, we move on and we start talking about the panhard mount. All right. I ran this truck with 180. It was an RTR servo out of another truck. That servo would stall before we got any real noticeable flex out of the panhard mount. So the panhard did not flex all over the place. The servo would stall first, and the truck performed extremely well with that setup. It really did. It truly did. All right. Moving on from there, we'll talk about plastics next. The plastic body posts that came with it were honestly one of the weakest points of the truck. Now, they're not something we think of as super important. They flex like crazy rather than breaking, I guess you could look at it that way. But the axial body post, and this is actually an axial XCX102 body, the axial body posts fit perfect. Okay, they line up perfect. Exact same setup. So I swapped the axial body post onto the truck. And also, this is a scalar fab bumper that's made for an axial SCX102 for the body you just seen, and it lines up perfect. So just FYI, just so you know that. But the plastics in general on this truck are slightly soft. As an RTR standpoint, they are not an issue. Okay, factory electronics that would came in your RTR, or if you put RTR grade electronics in it, you're not going to notice an issue. Even the body posts, they were weak, flexy, but it's not a huge deal. One thing I will say, the factory truck comes with plastic wheel hexes. To me, for all the price points, whether you have an RTR or a kit, there is zero reason, zero call for them to be plastic wheel hexes. That is one thing I do knock this truck for. Plastic wheel hexes should not be included with this truck. They should be metal. It's dirt cheap for them to make metal ones. There's no excuse for it. Next, we're going to move on to other plastics. These are not factory. What you're looking at is not factory. And this is why I bring up, please, if you have a problem with your truck, get a hold of customer service. They will send you what you need, okay? They had a run of bad link ends, all right? I had one of those link ends. I knew they had a bad batch of them, and I knew they were sending out replacements, no questions asked. I didn't choose to go that direction because I wanted something more serious anyway. The plastic they had for link ends was just a little too soft for my liking. I didn't have a warm fuzzy feeling about it. Dixieland RC sells this kit for this truck to convert it to boom racing link ends. And I've had really good luck with these link ends in other truck. And so I put them on here and I've been loving them. I had the factory link end pop off. It was actually this link popped off in an extreme crossing, zero pressure. I was just cruising and it fell apart. We dropped this in the creek, in the stream, and we found it later on that day by luck. But with that being said, you know, I didn't want to have any problems with it from there out. So I just opted to change everything. That link end was definitely one of the bad ones. Whenever I looked at it, and whenever I did my initial thoughts video, I originally said that the links went together easier than any links I'd ever seen. I mean, they just were like easy peasy to put together. And links are normally not hard to put together, but it should require a little effort. And whenever I looked inside the link end that popped off, there wasn't even threads inside of it from the metal link threading into it. There was just a little out of tolerance. You could tell it was just slightly an off mold. So they solved that problem. One thing I will give props to Element for is the links, like we just talked about, they already solved the problem. They have a fix for it, and they were on the ball. Another thing I'm going to mention, I never had this happen. Mine has been fine, but I should have brought a wheel wrench with me. I did not. But on the back side of this wheel, there are some people having the whole rear axle pop out, slide out. And all it is on the back side of this is there's two screws, one on top, one on bottom. And all they do is catch the bearing. That bearing holds in your axle shaft. What happens is that bearing was just barely, just the edge of it's getting caught by the screw. Not everyone's was getting caught and they were sliding out. Element has the fix for that. They have different screws, larger, slightly larger head on them, that it's basically like a washer almost, that takes care of that problem. It won't happen again. If you do have a problem with yours, get a hold of them. They'll send you the screw, or if you just want to buy the screw, just buy the screw so you have it. They also work nice for some other things. So that is where we were at. We covered a lot of stuff in a short period of time there, but we'll also talk briefly about the transmissions. We'll also talk briefly about the differences, okay? I'm treating all the trucks as the same in this review, the Kit and the RTR, but it's important to know what the difference actually is between the Kit and the RTRs. Okay, the RTRs come with wheels, tires, bumpers. All right. The Kit does not come with any of those. All three versions come with the options for the transmission ratios. So you still get the overdrive whether you get the Kit or the RTR. The difference between them is the Kit includes machined metal gears, where the RTR includes plastic gears. Okay, the transmission is plastic geared in the RTR. The other differences between them is the Kit comes with the machined or the metal shock cap, as well as the spring retainers on the bottom of the shock. Kind of get one here so you can see it. Flip things around and you can see the bottom of the shocks are aluminum, blue aluminum. Okay. The other difference is the Kit comes with links to do all three wheelbases. The RTR obviously only comes with the links that does the version of body it's with. Okay, so Kit has more options there with links. Honestly, it's not a big deal. You can get links anywhere. I prefer D-links personally, but you know, they're available anywhere. So that is the differences between all three of them, just so you're aware. And we're talking about all three of them in this part right now. So we need to come up with a final review for these three trucks. Okay, I mentioned all the positives. They all come with the overdrive options. They perform extremely well. We've had a ton of fun with them. Honestly, I let the Cub Scouts, we had a Cub Scout fun day. I'm a Cub Master. They asked me to bring some trail trucks, and this was one of the ones I brought. And the kids beat on this truck for 6 hours. And we never once had any kind of breakage with it. And mind you, these were kids who never drove a truck in their life, so they were not easy on it. It got rolled, it got tumbled, it was forward, reverse, instantly. It was, I thought I was going to have something shattered, but never did. So that's positive. So for a kid, for a beginner, I give this truck an 8.5, very close to a 9, but I'm going to say an 8.5. The reason I am going to knock some points off of it is the plastic wheel hexes. I've got to nail it for that. Quite frankly, that is an irritating thing. So plastic wheel hexes, and the other thing I'm going to knock it for is just the plastics in general. All right, they're slightly soft. Nothing that you need to super worry about, nothing that's a major issue, but there is some flex there that is just kind of, I wouldn't expect it. None of the other trucks in the same category have that much flex. So that's kind of where it's at, but still 8.5, 9, that is amazing. Okay, guys, that is amazing. So just something to think about. Fun truck, great truck. I wouldn't tell anyone not to get it by any means. So definitely grab one up if it interests you. Next, we're going to take another dive. We finished up that part. Part 1 is done. We're moving on to part 2 now. So let's talk about part 2. Part 2 takes a different turn. Part 2 focuses mainly on steering, mainly on the transmission ratios, as well as ride height. All right. Just so you know, that's what part 1 is really, or part 2 is really going for, and it's going to change up the review structure of what you just seen in part 1 pretty much. You know, part 2 is a little bit more serious, and it's not necessarily a pro look at it whatsoever. It's just if you're looking to do more with your truck, or you want the servo in it that moves rocks whenever you turn the tires, that's what we're talking about right now. Electronics wise, it doesn't really matter what you have in for motor or ESC. That's not really what we're focusing on here. And I'm going to tell you why. I mean, you can see my panhard mount is definitely not stock anymore. Quite frankly, it wasn't stock very long. As soon as I put the Reefs 555 in, you got to think about energy. Okay? Energy transfers. Energy will find its weakest point and it'll unload on it. It'll sit there and put all the energy to that spot, and that's what will absorb all of it. In this case, it was a panhard mount. Okay, that was the number one thing that was absorbing my energy for steering. As soon as the Reefs 555 was put into it, it was instant. I could sit the truck, put my finger here, and I wouldn't even feel any pressure on it. It was just that instant energy from that servo would hit the panhard mount and it would flex. This is known. This is very well known. Okay. And folks, I don't care. I don't need to war in the comment section about, well, a Reefs 555 this or that. I don't need to hear about it. I don't care what servo you use. I don't care which servo you favor, as long as it puts out real torque numbers, and does the job. That's all that matters, folks. Okay. I have not had any issues with Reef servos. I've also not had any issues with other servos as well. So therefore, we don't need a servo war. I know how things get sometimes. So, but anyhow, after replacing the panhard mount, I could put my finger here and I still didn't have any steering. Well, in the meantime, a lot of my steering energy was getting absorbed in the factory rod ends. All right, all the factory rod ends were absorbing my steering. The plastic balls and the soft plastic that I used in the ends. All right. So I replaced, like I said, the links. All the links got new link ends. I replaced these link ends, and well, I could put my finger here, turn the steering, and I still didn't have hardly any steering. Then that come to my last point, and quite frankly, it was a point where I said, I'm done. All the energy transferred into the screws that are going vertical. If I remember correctly, they're the kingpin screws. Sorry, I'm having a moment here. Kind of lost my train of thought. But these screws, the plastic on the kingpin screws, you could sit there and watch them whenever I steer, whenever I have the truck put down. You can watch the flex in all this. All right. Also, the mount plate. You know, we had our metal mount plate on top of plastic for the steering link. Them two screws wiggle back and forth. You can tighten them down and they just work themselves loose again. And you can watch the energy transfer through all that. Okay. So essentially, as soon as you upgrade your steering servo, you start going through a chain reaction in the steering of this truck. Quite frankly, and here's what I base my perspective on, and if there is only one vehicle that has a specific problem, then I nail that vehicle for that specific problem. And especially if it's something that's not common, okay? For instance, I can take an Axio SCX10 2. I can take a Traxxas TRX4. I can take, a Viterra Ascender. I can take all kinds of different brand named vehicles. Put an upgraded steering servo in them. And yes, I might pick up a wee little bit of play here or there, but it's not a complete train wreck. Okay, it's not play the entire way through the system. For instance, the Axio SCX10 2. Yeah, I might get a little bit of play on the panhard and the steering servo mount, but it is just minuscule. It's enough to say that it has play. It is not enough to say that it's not drivable. It's not predictable. Because really all you're going to do whenever you upgrade that is get better predictability. It's going to be more tight. It's going to be truer. So with that being said, you know, I really knocked this truck for that one. So, you know, it's kind of what it is. So our final review for this, oh, one last thing, ride height, I almost forgot. This truck was like a it liked to roll over like crazy. Factory setup, I'm just talking building it as the kit, as the instructions was talking. It's that high. It's that extremely high. Of course, the known thing to do is cut the shock mount off on the rear, which I'm going to show you here in a second. All right. So you can see that on the rear. Oh, here we go. Get it in the camera. I'm mounted to the bottom, right where the link mount's at. It used to be up here, up top, you know, and be up in here. So 3/4 of an inch roughly, give or take a slight amount, is the difference between that. Dropping that truck 3/4 of an inch, let me see if I can get the truck to sit. And you can see there the links, the angle of the links right there. Let me set it up without trying to compress or change. Yes. Okay, see how the rear, this is the rear of the truck. They are more of a smaller slope to them. They're more parallel. Whereas these ones are going downhill a lot more. I had the front done like that, but I will tell you that the thing to be careful with, I have two different set of link mounts, shock mounts, link mounts for the front. Ones that are cut and ones that are not cut. These ones are not cut, they're hard plastic. My cut ones are the soft plastic. But I've been testing these J-Concept tires, which by the way, I'm in love with these things. And with the suspension raised 3/4 of an inch, the tires would hit off my longer, this is the longer battery mount. So with that being said, you know, if you're on the short battery mount, you're fine. Or if you're on a custom one, you're also fine. Also, to raise the front, you've got to get a panhard. Thankfully, D-Links makes a panhard link that clears the pumpkin whenever you do that. This link allows me to clear the pumpkin because whenever you're moving the suspension up 3/4 of an inch, you're moving the whole shock up, which is changing where your stop is in your shock. So it raises all that up. So to clear that, this is what you got to do. So run the D-Link panhard mount or the panhard bar. I highly recommend the panhard mount, whether it is the BPC when I'm running, or if you do the shock towers with it built in, and everything clears. That made a tremendous difference with the truck. Okay. Also, Hot Racing makes gear set. They make different ones. Some are to underdrive the rear, some are to overdrive the front. I like that, okay? 12% roughly, you know, it's 11 something, but that is not high enough overdrive for me. I want 25, 30% is where I like to fall. Well, Hot Racing has all kinds of options. The one I'm running right now gives me 25% overdrive to the front. Thankfully, I liked it because it did it by underdriving the rear. I got the one that underdrives the rear. What that does is keeps the final drive ratio the exact same. Your fastest set of tires is going to be what your true final drive ratio is for the truck. Okay, so my front tires are not turning any faster than what the factory setup was, so my final drive ratio stays the same. My rear just slowed down slightly. So that is what I'm running. Them gears are available from RC Addict. That's where I purchased mine at. Or I believe also Dixieland RC can get them as well. But check both of those out. Maybe one may have what the other one doesn't, vice versa. So that brings us to the end of this video. We talked about the plastics, the plastic wheel hexes, just the whole 9 yards of the truck at this point. And I got to give it a review for the kit, or for a more serious person. I would say, as a more serious person, I would put this in the 6.5 or 7 area at best. I feel as a kit, this really falls short. And I'm not really talking so much about the RTR truck at this point, because there's a difference in the value in the way you look at them. But, you know, being a kit, this truck should have for certain. You know, in my initial thoughts video, I said the truck should have came with front shock towers that were the hard plastic. And at this point, I honestly don't think that would have been that much beneficial, especially whenever you start throwing a real servo in there. The people I talked to that have tried the hard plastic were still not happy with them after having a monster servo in the truck. All right. And it should have came with hard plastic, C-hubs, and knuckles. Without question, it should have came with those. The reason it should have came with those is they knew right off the bat they were going to have problems with this truck, or they were going to have spots in this truck that needed to have something stiffer in it. They knew it from day one, and they did not include it with it. Okay, so that's why I give it the score I did. If they would have threw them, because it shouldn't be that much of a chain reaction. You don't have to do any of that stuff with any other truck on the market. This is the only one that presents itself that way, and that's why it irritates me the way it does. So it's still a great truck, folks. I still like it. I still very much so like it. It's just something to keep in mind, and it's something that needs nailed for. You know, it's just more money. At that point, you start adding up all the hard plastics, and you start adding up what you're doing. It starts getting to be a fairly expensive kit to do the same thing that another kit can do for much less money. So, all right, folks, that's where we're going to leave this. Please be respectful in the comment section. If you're not respectful, I already made my mind up you're going. Your comment's going, I'll just delete it. You waste your time typing it. So, you know, we can have, I love discussions. I love conversations back and forth. That's awesome. But we don't need super negativity. Not being negative per se to the truck. It's just got some things that I expect to be better for this level of where this truck's attacking at and what it's supposed to be. So, huge thank you all. Massive thank you. The support, the subscriptions, the likes. I appreciate it all. It's not a spot I thought I would be. It's not a, you know, it's not something I sit there and watch every day. I do it, try to be helpful. I do it to, you know, God forbid I'm never around, and just get something for my kids to fall back on and watch. Maybe they'll learn some stuff. I look at things from many perspectives. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them or help you out. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. A lot more videos on the way. Appreciate it, everyone.